Hey guys, this is called It's All Good, and that's because my name is Elton Good and I'm a community worker in a church here in Shannon. And I'm making these videos because, like many lads out there, I am looking for truth and I found it in Jesus. And I want to share the truths that I found, and I want to share the truths I'm continuing to find in Jesus here on this channel. So if that's you and you're seeking and you're looking for truth and looking for answers, please like and subscribe and check out the videos that we have here. I'll be starting off today's look at all kinds of different, reacting to different videos that you've probably seen on TikTok or Instagram or on YouTube. So come with me, let's discover these together. Here we go.
As you see the title of this video, what I'm going to talk about is the Christianity of today and why I hate it.
Okay. Ooh.
And the main reason why is because there's such a lack of love. We've gotten to a place of judgment, condemning people, and it doesn't surprise me if we wonder why we're not in certain spaces, dominating certain spaces, being in certain conversations, is because we demonize people.
Yeah, look at this. This question's been asked, many times by many different people. I think probably the person who articulated this the best was a guy called Mahatma Gandhi, and he said this: "I like your Christ, don't like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." And I can definitely, I think many people would say, yeah, I hear you, Gandhi. I've seen that. As a Christian myself, I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of other Christians as well. We are sinners, we commit sin, and we don't always do a fantastic job or a good job of mirroring or reflecting the love of Jesus around of us. And yeah, I think we get it our way sometimes. And no better example is recorded by John in the Gospels, John chapter 8, where this woman is caught in adultery. It's kind of hypocritical really, because obviously adultery takes two, but only she is brought before Jesus to be stoned, because the rules of the time dictated that she could be stoned to death for her great sin. So they're all there, full of judgment and condemnation. They got their stones ready to go and finish her off. And Jesus, they sort of look at Jesus and they go, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to condemn her as well? And Jesus says, no, I don't condemn her. And he sort of points out their sin to each and every one of them. And he reminds them that they're sinners too. And so one by one, they begin to drop their stones and walk away until it's only Jesus and her left, which is interesting because Jesus doesn't walk away either. The one guy that could actually condemn her and say, well, actually, no, I've got no sin. I've done nothing wrong here. Is actually, chooses not to condemn her. And he says to her, woman, where's all these people who condemn you? And she says, well, none of them are here. They've all gone away. And he says, well, neither do I condemn you, but go from this place and sin no more. And I think as Christians, and maybe within the church, we get it arseways, we get it backwards. I think what we do is, our message is often, listen, be the perfect person, behave as the perfect Christian, and then, God won't condemn you. And that is just not feasible. It's not, no one can do that. And I think what Jesus did, what amazes me about Jesus' message is he says to her, neither do I condemn you, but go from this place and sin no more. I think Jesus gets it the right way around. And I think we need to as well. This young man is challenging and saying, well, Christians are not invited into spaces because we're condemning, we're full of judgment, we're full of anger and hatred, and we're very judgmental to other people. And I think that's where we need to stop getting caught up in Christianity and get back to being about Christ, and remind ourselves, how Jesus dealt with that lady that day, and that's how we should behave. So my challenge for both me and for you is, let's not be looking like this young man is. Let's not be focusing so much on Christianity. Let's get our focus back on Christ.
Angry. I don't get how the wicked can live, how they live. And I have to struggle. And I've been trying my hardest to move with a pure heart, pure mind, pure intentions. And I've been struggling all my life. It's so unfair to me that I have to be broken to be close to God. Make it make sense.
Yeah, I think I think every person of faith can relate to where this guy's coming from. I think we all go through periods of suffering and difficulty, and we begin to wonder, where is God? What is going on here? And if we look at any great, I would say, man and woman of God, I think they've all had that same experience. Jeremiah had it, David had it, Job went through it, where you're kind of saying, like, God, where are you? And I think was it Jeremiah put it even more nicely. He said, why do the wicked, why do they get ahead? How come they prosper? How come they're doing well? And David asked the same question, and much more or less the same question that our friend here is asking. I think one of the challenging things we have to understand, guys, if you're going to walk with God, is that He is more interested in your character than your comfort. And that means that He is going to prioritize the development of your character in your life. And that means He's going to put you through some pretty challenging stuff to work on that character. And He is going to do that. In order to do that, He's going to sacrifice your comfort. I'm going to just say right now, if you want to click below, I did previously a set of videos called Léargas, and one of the series that we did was called New Wine, where we looked at how God sows a seed of faith into our lives. That seed grows, produces a vine, a plant. But then in order for that vine to really grow, God has got to do some things. First of all, He has to dig around of it. Maybe sometimes He has to, dung it, as in He's got to put, fertilizer on it to grow. And then even when it seems like life becomes successful and we're growing and we're producing fruit, we're being fruitful, then God takes the very fruit that we produce and He crushes it. Very grapes that, the good stuff that we produce, He crushes it. And we're like, what are you doing, God? That was me being fruitful. And then He prunes us, which is even crazier, He starts cutting bits off of us. But He's making new wine. That's what He's doing. So if you want to kind of check out some of those videos and all the principles and stuff that goes behind that, just click here in the description and you can have a look at them. But coming back to our friend here, I think there's a few other big questions we need to ask. I think one of them would be, what is it about those, the wicked, for want of a better term, that are doing well? What is it about their life that we're maybe envying and being jealous of? I think that would be a good question to ask. What are we looking over the fence and kind of going, oh, it's not fair, they're having this and that and the other thing, and I'm not. And I think what we might find is that sometimes our priorities can be askew. We're looking at wicked, others that are ungodly or are, cutting corners to get somewhere. And we're saying, oh, I want that same success that they have. And maybe, we're chasing the same God with a small g that they're chasing. And it's time for us, to not stop pretending that we're chasing the small g and actually start really going and pursuing God, the big G, and His priorities and what He has for our lives. Okay, so our production team is sending me some questions, and my thing here is to react. So I'm just waiting for the messages to come up. I'm not really sure what Hafa's going to do to me here. Okay, first question. How do I get close to God? Well, that's a great question. And I really hope that you're asking that question. And from what I want to really encourage you is that we often think of that question from our perspective, like, how do I get close to God? But what I'd like to do is encourage you, is that remind you that God is actually close to you, and He's a lot closer to you than you think. We get caught up a lot of times in religion, and religion comes from that Latin word religare, which means to bind ourselves to something. So it's like we're trying to reach up to God all the time, like, what have I got to do to reach up to God? What have I got to change in my life? What do I need to do, to get close to God? And the crazy thing is, God has already done that. God actually, what makes Christianity so unique is God came from heaven down here to us. So it's God who closes the distance to us. It's God who comes down to us. The Bible says, the Word of God, Jesus, became flesh, became a person, and lived or dwelt amongst us. So God's a lot closer than you think. And what I would simply say to you is, you just need to reach out to Him. So my suggestion on that is that you do that in such a way that I think connects well with you. So Go find somewhere that's quiet. I think we live in a very busy world. So go find a quiet place and just pray. Just open yourself up to God and say, Lord, God, if you're up there, I'm here. Come speak to me, come talk to me. And I believe God will do that. I suppose one other little funny story. There's this story about this guy who's crying out and saying, God, help me. I'm stuck here. My boat has sunk and I'm stuck here on this island. Come and save me, God. And God sends, this helicopter comes out of nowhere and flies above, and he's kind of going, yeah, but like I'm waiting for God to come and save me. So the helicopter, flies off, and then a rescue boat comes to the island, and it's like, we're here for you. And he's like, no, I'm waiting for God to come and save me. And the point being, and that's a silly story, but the point being that, sometimes we're waiting for this big spiritual, encounter. Meanwhile, God is actually sometimes very, very practical. So if you're calling out to God or you're crying out to God, don't be surprised in any way if God begins to speak to you through simple things. God begins to speak to you maybe through people. God begins to put a video on, maybe even this video or another one of these videos on your timeline. Someone said, isn't that just about a coincidence? And I said, no, I call it a God incidence. Hey guys, so next question. And the next question is, why is it important to go to church? Great question. Let me back up a little bit though. If you're seeking God and you're looking for God, I think it's a smart idea to go to church. If you're not really searching for God or looking for God, then you might need to sort of ask yourself, well, why go to a church? It can't be because there's good-looking women there, or I need myself a good, I've had a few interesting ladies down the last while, so I need a good church woman now in my life. So I think you need to go with the right motives. I remember one guy when I was in school with, and he was telling me, he needed to pretty much get an A1 in every single one of his exams, and he was a complete and utter atheist, but he was going to start going along to mass just to make sure, kind of had God on his back pocket in case he didn't get that A1. So yeah, I think it comes down to our motives as to what's our motive for going to church. In terms of why we go to church though, number one, you need to go to church for God, plain and simple. You can't be going there for, it's nice to have other people there and all the different connections, but ultimately we go to church because we really want to encounter God. We want to go to a place where we will learn more about God. And one of the things I love about church, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is it's just great to get together with other people who love what you love or are interested in what you're interested in. So I'm a Liverpool fan. Please don't unsubscribe. But like I enjoy watching, Liverpool on my phone or at home on the TV, but it's just way more crack and way more fun to go to Anfield or even go to like a local pub and get around a whole bunch of other lads who love Liverpool, and the camaraderie and the crack and the banter and, when that goal is scored and just celebrating together. It's the same with church. And, God never designed us to be alone. I know you're alone with your phone right now, likelihood. You're watching this by yourself, but we're created to be in community. God is himself a community, Father, Son, and Spirit. He created us to be a community, so he creates Adam and Eve, and he gives them the capacity to have kids and to create community. And he tells us that we need to be part of a church community. We need to be part of a group of people, an ecclesia, a gathering. So, please, I know it's very easy in our world to become independent and have sort of it's me and my walk with God, and I'm my spiritual journey with God. But the whole point of what God is trying to get across to us is that we're designed to be on the journey together with other people. And that's why we go to church, and that's why it's important to go to church. Okay, what's half of God lined up for me this time? Hey, now take it easy on me. Oh, okay. Deep. How can I know that God is real? Well, I think there's two ways of looking at this, and I would summarize it as research and me search. So research, I have a great friend, John McCarthy, and John was kind of looking at his life and pondering and thinking, there's got to be something deeper. There's got to be a meaning to all of this whole universe and life and all that goes with it. And he just began to read a book about all different kinds of religions. And as he went through that book, it became very obvious to him as he did his research that Jesus was the way. There was just something next level about Jesus. I mean, you look at even, the two biggest religions in the world, you look at Christianity, and then you look at Islam, and you just look at how big of a deal Isa or Jesus is in Islam. You look at, Judaism, in many ways he's this Messiah that they're waiting for. Jesus is just on another level. Even the likes of Mahatma Gandhi, who's like one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Hindu philosopher, and he's going around quoting Jesus. So there is just something incredible about Jesus. And I think if you do research, I think you'll begin to realize when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father God except through me. I think that's once you go on that journey, you'll begin and do the research, you'll begin to see the same thing. How do I know that God is real though? I think that's what I've discussed there about research is very much an intellectual aspect to it. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, but just a purely intellectual faith it's not the relationship that you need and that I think is what's going to take you to that deeper level. We can know of Jesus, we can know lots of stuff about Jesus, but this is where we need to have what I call me search, which is a relationship with God. You need to encounter God. And so I would say to you, in terms of how do I know God is real, you need to have those encounters with God. And that's where all I'm going to say is just open yourself up to it. Jesus says it, God says it numerous times. If you seek me, you'll find me. One prophet, Jeremiah, put it this way. God said it to Jeremiah, you will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all of your heart. So, do your research, do your me search, look to encounter God. Get off this phone, go to a forest, go find him in nature, because God made, look around you, look at all the incredible stuff that God has made. Do your me search and you'll also begin to realize that God is very, very real.